at all of these clips that are all of my face, basically. From one day to the next, I mean, I've done a few things differently with my makeup, but not really. I mean, doing black eyebrows today was probably one of the more unusual things that I've ever done with my makeup. But I typically do my makeup the same. My hair hasn't been really that different from day to day. And I've typically been in just one of 2 locations. I was taking most of the clips at one location first, and then lately I've been taking them with this sort of a backing, whatever that is in the back, mirror thing in the back. And as you can tell, depending on the lighting, or I guess depending on the lighting or the way that the camera just happens to be filming from day to day, I can look really old and like I'm very wrinkled. I can look extremely young. My skin looks dark, my skin looks light, my face looks square, my face looks long and rectangular or heart-shaped. My eye color looks a little bit different from day to day, maybe. And with those photos, so every day you're not going to see every single blemish that's on my face. I mean, thank goodness. But when I was taking these photos of evidence of torture on my son, the marks were even darker in person. So it's not like CPS didn't see them. You know, they were not blind. And nobody that was, you know, was watching those visitations was wearing, you know, bifocals or really thick glasses or told me that they'd lost a contact. So when I had these photos of bruising of on my son's legs, and when he was coming into the visits, acting despondent, I mean happy to see me, but despondent, lethargic, and out of it, I really wondered if he was being drugged. I wondered if he was so traumatized that his doctor had decided to dope him up. And nobody would tell me anything. So if they did dope him up, I know for a fact that they would not have ever told me about it because they knew that it was against my wishes and they knew that I would have thrown a fit and I would have published that information to everybody on my blog. The state is drugging my son. So, you know, it was alarming, and then what I was being told by Michelle Erickson is very much along the lines of this whole MK Ultra programming idea, where I've already described how I've been tortured, okay, in various situations where somebody's zapping me and watching my response while I'm around them. Like, they're providing housing. They put me into this really serious, between a rock and a hard place position. And then I find I'm at the mercy of the quote-unquote Good Samaritans, who are not always Good Samaritans. They're using me for research or to keep me in my place. And again, when I say research, that has been a cover for hate crimes. I don't care how you categorize it. What has happened to me and my family is hate crime. And so then I'm stuck with these people and having to rely on individuals who act very friendly, like they're my friend, and then I notice I'm being tortured, and that they notice and they know, and they're observing me, and then I'm having to pretend that nothing is really happening because I don't have any other options. And if I do say something, then maybe it will get even worse. I mean, if they're basically proving their point by showing me what they can do, of course I know that it could get worse. So has been a way to reinforce my silence and going along with what they're doing and not talking about them, because they basically made themselves the only people who are available to provide a roof over my head or food. I mean, the very basic essentials of life. And I mean, this is in, America. When, I was not ever mentally ill. I'm not a bump on a log. I've always had a lot that I could be contributing and to offer, that I've always wanted to contribute to and offer. And instead, I get, cordoned into this horrific nightmare. Of between 11 and 15 years, actually. The first time I noticed anything unusual at all was in 1992. But nothing really got bad until 1995. And then it was full-blown torture by 2005. No holds barred. So, when I describe what kind of conditioning they tried to use with me while they tortured me, that's the same thing that they did when they brought my son around and forced me to see my son being tortured, and with evidence of abuse on his body. They said to me, you should be lucky, you should be thankful or you're lucky, and you should be thankful that your son is with the Avilas, because it could get a lot worse if he was with a different family. That's what Michelle Erickson said to me. More than once. At least he's with family. Things could get a lot worse. It would be much worse in a different family. At least he's with family. Maybe we should look into the family and have him, and then after basically making it sound like I should be thankful and he was lucky that he was with family because the damages were minimized, then I was being threatened with, if you report abuse, we'll take him away from that family and put him with someone that's worse. That's the kind of game that the state of Washington was playing. It was intimidation of a witness to evidence of child abuse and torture. And those CPS workers, none of them should have their jobs. And really, CPS should not be a department of the United States at all. And the word that I was looking for the other day, which I don't know why it wouldn't come to my mind then, was just eliminate. That department needs to be eliminated. And so, this is the kind of thing that they were doing while figuring out how to manage me, the mother, while they tortured my son. And not only were they trying to manage me and conceal crimes against children, they were figuring out how to manage and conceal documentation and evidence of those crimes. And then they were using me and my son together. They were watching us and observing us, using us for research when we were together. Not for normal human parenting, child attachment bonding kinds of observation. No. It was observations for military intelligence and CIA programming. How do the mother and child relate to each other after we've worked on them separately and tortured them separately from each other? and we think that this is how they're going to react and respond to each other when they see each other next. Let's see if our prediction proves true. They used the visitation between us not for a chance for my son to heal or to bond with me and to increase the bond or keep the bond. They used the visitation as a lab. It was a government lab. So after I reported this really horrible bruising that my son was showing up with every single day, I mean every single time that I saw him for visits, and of course they didn't do anything when I was with Alvaro at first. And when at first we had separated, they didn't do anything right away to my son. I mean, I saw no visible evidence of harm. I mean, I am sure, I know that he was harmed in my absence, but they were not allowing me to see visible evidence. And as soon as Alvaro was out of the picture, they wanted me to see everything. The next thing that they did to my son was after I said he still has signs of tinea versicolor, basically the same thing that I was treated for by a doctor after Dr. Butler wouldn't treat me for the thrush, the systemic thrush that my son and I both had. After we were both refused treatment for that, this other doctor, who didn't want Dr. Butler to get into trouble for not treating us, she tried to reclassify what was wrong. And she said, oh, that's not thrush. It has nothing to do with your breastfeeding. It's not connected in any way at all. And she said, it's tinea versicolor. It's totally different. It's a skin rash and it has nothing to do. And I said, it's a yeast, right? And she said, it is a variety of yeast or fungal or whatever, or yeast is what she said. But she said it's not thrush, it's not candida. It is tinea versicolor and there is no relation. And I said to the doctor, my son and I were both refused treatment for thrush. We both were diagnosed with thrush. When we didn't get an internal treatment for systemic thrush, it never went away. And then it got worse, and we ended up having these spots on other parts of our body. And I said, it seems to me that thrush can mutate into a different form, which is possibly, if you want to call it tinea versicolor, then that's fine. But it's still coming from the thrush, the systemic thrush that was not treated. That doctor, that woman hated me. She wanted to diagnose me to make sure that Dr. Butler, who was obviously a friend of hers, could not be liable in any way for refusal to treat us on something that was covered by insurance and could have so easily been treated. And anybody who has seen the photos that I've put online on my blog that shows where I have this rash, you can see very clearly that that is from thrush. It's under the chest area, you know, where the bra would be, where my chest size was much larger and they hung down large. That sounds, I don't know how to describe it, but you know, just try to think of it in a medical way. That is why I had the rash there, and I still have it in the same place. It never went away. And my son, and then we got a couple of other spots that sort of migrated from that. And my son had it, and this doctor said to me, it's impossible for children to get this.